Nicole Scott here from Mobile Geeks, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Asus Zenbook UX305UA. This is a Skylake or 6th generation processor ultra-thin notebook. No touchscreen, gorgeous matte display, and with a starting price of $799. So let's take a closer look. So this is a Skylake based thin and light notebook. It doesn't have a touchscreen, so we're not calling it an Ultrabook. The display is my favorite part of this machine, hands down. So we've got 13.3 inches. The unit that I'm reviewing here is 1920 by 1080, but there's also a QHD version, which would be 3200 by 1800. But to be honest with you, I'm perfectly happy with the full HD because the viewing angles on this are just great. The color saturation and the color accuracy is something that I'm really happy with because it has a really legit matte display cover here. It's something that, to me, makes the machine something that you're really going to use on the road. So if we just take a look at the hardware, and I'll get back to the display in a minute, the version that we've got, it's got a Core i5 processor, so it's the 6200U. It comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, that is soldered on RAM, so the bottom of the machine, you won't be able to upgrade it even if you unscrew it. So around the side we have some status LEDs, headphone jack, mini HDMI. I believe this is the USB 2.0 port along with the PSU. Along the back we have the hinge, and then there's some heating vents here. Down around the other side we have two USB 2.0. This one is powered if you want to charge your devices, as well as a full-size SD card reader. So talking about the overall design of the notebook, I have to say that I'm not a fan of the finish that they've chosen. I've been using this device for a week and I've already got a scratch in it, and I've been unable to get a few of these kind of like scuff marks off. So if you are going to be buying this, you are going to need a case, and I would probably invest into a sticker over the top. Compared to last year's version, it doesn't have that swirled metal finish. This is just kind of like a plain. Now, one thing that is good about this unit is that it does have an all-metal chassis. Now, the keyboard is made of plastic. But I have to admit, I'm not that big of a fan. The quality, it's quite bouncy. But typing this review on it, I've actually found the travel on the keys and the give is quite nice. But after coming off of something like the Microsoft Surface Book, I have to say that I was disappointed. So now, when we talk about the trackpad itself, it has a good amount of click. It's stiff, but not too stiff, and it doesn't feel cheap. The resistance is rather even all the way across. The silky finish is fine. It kind of feels like glass, but definitely not as silky. There's a lot of other trackpads that do feel a little bit nicer than this one. It doesn't have the precision gestures that the Surface Book does, but you do have a couple. So that's Cortana, and then 4 for the charm. So I would say that I have about a 90% success rate for it registering these gestures. The 2-finger scroll works perfectly every single time, but it's just with these gestures here, you really need to make sure that you're like doing it with like lots of intent. My problem is that when I'm working quickly and I just try to pull up, like say the sidebar, sometimes it doesn't work. So I'd say it's an average trackpad. So one thing while we're talking about the keyboard that I do want to mention is the microphone placement. This is a great place for the microphone. Often they'll put it towards the back or somewhere just kind of not as great as a little bit further forward where it has a better chance of getting good audio. Now on my Skype calls, let's just actually test that out. So here we have the front-facing camera. It is 720p. It's got a CMOS sensor. It's grainy. I mean, this is good lighting right now. Like the table looks fantastic. I'm well lit, but like apparently I'm overexposed and looking a little bit grainy and dark. So this is the kind of thing that you should expect if you are doing any kind of Skype calling. Now let's talk about overall performance. I have absolutely no problem running multiple tabs on Edge, which tends to be a little less memory hungry than say something like Chrome, but it's pretty similar. Now I'm going to play this 1080p YouTube video to give you guys a speaker test. As well as video playback test. Nicole Scott here from Mobile Geeks, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Asus Zenfone 2. There's a lot about this device that punches above its class. It's $225 or $7,000. So you can kind of see that it's very tinny. Probably shouldn't. Way It's supposed to have ICE-powered Bang & Olufsen speakers. On some previous generations of Zenbooks that I've had, the sound's been very full, but right now the sound is not full at all, and actually quite weak, I would say. So now while we're looking at the display itself, let me kind of talk about one design flaw that once I see it, I can't unsee it. So now it's right here. I find this incredibly irritating. I like how the entire display is lined with this rubber so that when you close it, it doesn't sit flush right up against the keyboard. So it's right here. Once you unsee this, you can't unsee it. So they've lined the entire display with rubber, and then they've just filled this hole with more rubber. And when you touch it in this corner, this is metal, exposed sharp metal. It's like they were like, oh, well, it's close enough. We'll just, we'll slap the back cover on. Here's the display front panel. It's cheaper. It does not have it extend down. So we'll just fill it with a little bit of plastic. From a design perspective, I cannot get over that they did that, and that this happened last generation, and they were like, well, let's just roll with it. We'll just keep doing that. And you can almost peel back the plastic. I mean, I got in there and I was kind of fiddling around. I mean, the average person's probably not going to do that, or I don't recommend that you do that, because you're going to end up breaking your display, and it's going to look even more janky than it possibly can. But also, stuff can get in there, and since it's silicone, it's a little bit sticky. So not a fan of that. And other things that kind of irritate me a little bit on the keyboard, how we have this top function row. I have to hit the function key in order to access any of these, right? So airplane mode, it automatically goes to F2 and F4, and now I'm never using the function keys, right? But all of these other hotkeys are things that I use on a consistent basis. So I just don't know why they didn't remap it, like most laptop manufacturers are doing these days. So that's something that I find a little bit disappointing. All right, now let's talk software. I'm very happy with Windows 10. But what I'm not happy with, so let's just pull all this stuff over here, because this is what comes preloaded, right? Asus gift box, so it's spam for spam, right? So they're curating apps from an app store. I'm not sure about this. Asus web storage, and then also Dropbox. Right, so all the options for online storage, and so you can get 25 gigs free if you sign up as a new user. Evernote, iCare Switcher. I mean, so this is actually quite useful. So this takes the blue out of the display so that you can go to sleep better. There's a lot of people that believe in that. I am one of them. There's just too much bloatware. The good thing about it is if you install something called Decrapifier, you'll be able to get rid of a lot of this. I definitely do that on your initial install, just because all of these things loading in the background does slow down your boot up time. So I hate that they've loaded these things on and it's affected the performance of the machine. So that's really a negative, but at the same time, you can uninstall them. So you just need to do that. So now let's talk performance, because this generation and last generation is still called the Zenbook UX305UA, right? That's because it's a chassis decision. So if you're going to buy this generation's, you need to make sure that you're getting a Skylake processor. How you're easily going to be able to tell is the previous generations on a Y series, right? So anything that has a Y in it will be from the previous generation. These are all just Core series, so they're U series processors. So this is the Core i5 6200U, and Core i7 6500U, i3 6100U. So just look for the U series on this. Now, in terms of performance, you're getting an extra hour of battery life. So if we look at my battery life results, let's pull that up right now. So here's a battery report from yesterday. So kind of tells you all of my activities. So this is an average of my past week of use. So its best guess on my activity over the past week is that on a full charge, I'm going to get about 6.5 hours. Previous generation, you're getting about 5.5 hours. So that is an hour increase. And I think 6.5 hours is an acceptable amount of time. Now, Asus says you're going to get 12. That's just not true. Even if I turn the Wi-Fi off and the brightness down to 0, I think I might get 8, right? So an 8-hour battery charge for a flight is where I want to be at. So I find that perfectly acceptable and something that I'm very confident that for a device starting at $799, getting a solid 6.5 hours of real use, Wi-Fi, brightness up, video editing, photo editing. Actually, I didn't do any video editing, just photo editing. But lots of tabs open, some benchmarks in there. So like very solid on that regard. So when it comes to actually comparing performance benchmarks to last generations, PC Mark Home got about 2,700 and last generation's got about 2,100. The multi-core score on Geekbench is almost 6,000, where Geekbench last year was 4,600. So in terms of graphics and gaming, we're seeing a significant jump. So on Firestrike, we're at 800, whereas last generation we were on 600, right? So I'm going to play some games now in order to give you an idea of what that looks like in terms of frame rate. All right, so let's just start off at automatic settings, and you can see that it actually is quite high. I mean, I have no idea how to play Dota 2, so I'm in some kind of training zone. But we're seeing like frame rates upwards of 70, so this is quite good. So on medium settings, it looks like the average is about 15 to 20% lower. So we're seeing mid 40s in terms of frame rate, where I was seeing kind of like low 60s to mid 60s in my average gameplay when there was a lot of action on the screen. So what's my verdict? Do I think you should buy one? I think it has good enough battery life. 6.5 hours is decent. The display is gorgeous. Nice color gambit, matte, so it's so usable outside. Great wide viewing angles. It's light, 1.3 kilos. It has a good processor in it, and 8 gigabytes of RAM that's soldered on, a pretty fast SSD inside. I think performance-wise, I'm pretty happy with it as a multitasking machine that can handle a little bit of light multimedia processing. The downside is, even though it has an aluminum chassis, it is not a very robust feeling machine. I already have a scratch on the back. The finish just isn't as high-end or premium as I think it could be, and it just kind of feels not high-end, which is unfortunate because they probably could have just gone with a slightly better finish or a more rugged one. You know, it's not that much more to kind of make it a little tougher, and it really adds a lot to the device. And also that kind of gap below the display, like, we'll just put some silicone in there. Oh, it's fine, there's a hole and like an exposed sharp metal edge, right? There's, and then the keyboard is kind of bouncy. Yeah, the trackpad is good, average. Actually, the trackpad is completely average. But the keyboard, just coming off of the Surface Book, which is significantly, well, it's double the price. Yeah, it's double the price, but it has a significantly better keyboard. This is good enough. I adapted quite quickly to the keyboard and wrote this 2,500 word review on it, absolutely no problem. So I think that if you do pick it up, you just need to make sure that you're cautious of the fit and finish because it's not as robust as it could be. So those are my kind of thoughts on the UX305UA. Please leave me a comment down below if you have any additional questions. I will be sporting this after the review because I do really like the matte display. Super usable for outside. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. And while you're at it, why don't you like this video? I'm your host, Nicole Scott for Mobile Geeks.